It's Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. You know, your music dad. Today, we're gonna go down on a cool, sweet, fun adventure in music opinion land, where everyone is super nice, never mean, and always knows what they're talking about. Music discourse online is amazing! Okay, we're going. Oh, there's Twitter. People love to talk about music there. Oh, sorry, it's called X now. And there's Reddit. That's a great place for a music conversation. Oh, here's our final stop, YouTube, where only the healthiest, most productive, wonderful, and insightful discourse takes place. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another edition of Let's Argue, where I go on social media. I take your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, your tough questions. I respond to the best ones. You know what it is? Let's do it! CLB is better than Donda. CLB has aged way better than Donda. I mean, I don't know. I don't think either record has been around long enough to really age all that much. Everything we know about the albums or knew about the albums when they came out, still pretty much common knowledge right now. Like, if anything, the streaming numbers on Donda have most likely kind of petered out and slowed down a little bit. And, you know, for sure that has happened with CLB as well. But the thing about Drake's music and CLB is that it's so catchy, it's so omnipresent, it's so shoved down everybody's throats. And for sure, the Kanye cult is still there and is still real, even though there's like 1,000,001 reasons that it should not be there at this point. Like, as bad as Drake's music has gotten over the years here and there, he did not do what Kanye has been doing for the past year. Do I need to remind you? Look, all I'm saying is that Donda, in comparison with CLB, is a bit of a tougher and a more demanding listen, and that combined with the fact that, you know, Kanye has made a fool of himself in public over and over and over, and in some respects kind of voided a lot of what he said on that record. I don't know if you could say Donda has aged all that much better than CLB at this point. Even if at this point CLB continues to be the more inferior record creatively anyway. VTuber concerts are the future of music. No, they're not. I mean, for sure, VTuber concerts are going to happen in the future, but will they be the only kind of concert that we see or experience? God, I hope not, or I will not want to live anymore. In Minecraft. But what if we're all in the Matrix right now? Isn't the Matrix just one big VTuber concert? I love them, but the Beatles never really got good at being consistent for an entire album because of having to appease different members of the group by putting mediocre songs on great albums. Honestly, there's a chance their best work is one of the solo records. As crazy as the second half of Abbey Road is, for example, I think that album is super consistent. Quality-wise, there's nothing super bad or jarring on that record. But I mean, I get it. You know, most Beatles albums kind of have their weird odd ones or odd twos out in terms of like, oh, it's a funny little experiment, or, you know, oh, hey, it's a random song about a fun yellow submarine. But sometimes those weird little moments become some of the most popular and relevant and impactful and influential songs on the album. Be it that or like, you know, Number 9. And sure, you could argue that at the time, some of the Stones records, or even an album like Pet Sounds, for example, way more consistent across the board. But for that time, what the Beatles were doing in terms of like throwing random things into their albums here and there, that was just like not the norm for mainstream pop artists. And while, you know, the concept of album craft over the years has evolved to expect and almost necessitate consistency, at least in the context of the decade those albums were created in, I think that was kind of a cool, daring, and novel thing. And sure, while here and there you do get, you know, your stinkers on a Beatles album, I think those records should be celebrated for, you know, kind of expanding the vocabulary of pop music in the way that they did at the time. Death Grips is just 100 gecs for TERFs. You know, I saw Death Grips the other week live, and I'm pretty sure in the middle of the set, could have misheard because, you know, I don't know every lyric, and, you know, he is like kind of unintelligibly yelling at some points during the songs, but pretty sure, like 85% sure I heard Ride say trans rights. And honestly, I've never heard that in a Gex song. So I feel like the points on the board for Death Grips on that one. After trap, where does rap music go? That is the million-dollar question, because if you know where one of the most popular genres on the planet is going to go, and you can kind of predict what some of the biggest stars and voices in it are going to be a few years down the line, you're most likely going to be able to line your pockets pretty easily. But the thing is, ultimately, like, nobody really knows that. It's also kind of hard to see any super fast or immediate radical change occurring in any way, shape, or form too. Because while in the mainstream we're seeing new faces and voices kind of get pushed in and out all the time, when they enter into the fray, they're not necessarily upending or changing the base level sound or aesthetic trends that are dominating everything number-wise currently. You know, we were kind of in that same position toward the beginning of the 2010s as well. And, you know, that's when we started to get more trap music kind of hitting the mainstream. That's when we started to get stuff like Odd Future shaking things up. And if any of you guys were there at that point, I'm sure you can recall that, like, you know, nobody saw any of that stuff coming or becoming as big as it eventually did. So I don't know, if we are due for something different and something new, I think by nature of the beast, it's going to be a thing that we can't really foresee. Sorry for Party Rocking is better than My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I said a hot take. I said a hot take, not objective truth. As a Frank Ocean fan, I feel like if he dropped a great new album, he wouldn't be as acclaimed as he was for Channel Orange and Blonde. I mean, there's a real possibility of this for a few different reasons. One, the wave of fans that supported Frank and brought him to the level of popularity that he is today is a little bit older. A lot of them most likely have kind of moved on with their lives, maybe are listening to other artists, you know, outside of the very limited Frank Ocean sphere, because he has not released that much music over the years. Will the younger end of the Zoomer generation be there with the same level of passion and fervor when he does eventually drop a new album? It could very much happen, but it could very much not. And that could be due in part to the fact that we have waited so long for a brand new album, and the most recent experience that we had with Frank was that really disappointing and bad live show. And unfortunately, like, with all that, I feel like things have grown or ballooned up to where the hype is so huge and the expectations are so high, would even like a decent record be able to keep the fans satiated? Because at this point, like, we've been waiting for the album so long, it better be one of the best things we've ever heard Frank Ocean ever put his fingers on. Like, in terms of quality, even if the record is a little bit below Blonde, just a little bit below Blonde, that is most likely going to create a reaction that's like, oh man, this sucks, this is terrible, this is not hitting in the way that I wanted it to. You know, even a slight disappointment for an album we've been waiting for this long can feel like major disappointment. And even a record that doesn't blow Channel Orange or Blonde out of the water can feel like a disappointment in some sense, especially if, you know, Frank doesn't feel like he's coming forward with anything new, again, after so long, having waited. So, I don't know, man. While the scarcity of new Frank music has definitely driven interest in him and what he does and has kept him popular for this long, that same scarcity is going to make it difficult for him to continue forward and just drop more projects and have them be received in a positive way. Sometimes just regularity is the way to go, because this like really weird, lopsided, inconsistent release schedule, I think, is like not really doing it. Here's a tough question. When will the pain stop? I'm wondering the same thing. And so far, nope. No stopping. Okay, that's it for this episode of Let's Argue. Thank you very much for watching. You're the best. Mwah. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel, And yeah, you're cool. I like you. I enjoy you as an audience in the abstract. In the abstract, not in a literal individual sense. Though I'm sure you're nice. Don't make it weird. Thank you. Forever.